What's up, everyone? Dave the Data Dude. Today we are going to be talking about the apply function. This is a pandas function that allows you to reference other functions within your code. So I know that sounds a little confusing, so let's just go ahead and jump right into it and so I can show you what we're talking about. So to start, we're just going to do import pandas SPD, import our Pokemon CSV file that we've been working with, and then here you're going to see that I've already written out a couple functions. These are extremely basic. They're just designed to show you how you can use the apply function of pandas, not necessarily that they're going to save any time, just to give as a reference. So what we're going to do is, if you want, you can pause the video so you can take a minute to write down these codes, or you can write your own function, whatever you'd like, so you can follow along. So what we're going to do here is we're going to just write df.head, so we just see the first 5, so we can see any changes that we have happened in our code, so that we don't have to reference it every single time. We don't have to repeat everything every time. The other thing I want to do is I'm going to take our CSV file and I'm going to pull it down, and we're going to, every time we run our code, to essentially start fresh with our Pokemon CSV, so we can see the changes and compare them to the original, but we only are comparing them to the original instead of, if we ran a function, then we had to run it again. We run it again. It starts getting confusing what changes are actually being made. So we're just going to start with this one real quick, and we're going to do, we're going to make a new column, so it's going to be data frame, the new column name, test, so there's no column in this data frame that's labeled test, and we want to say equals df for data frame dot apply, right? So we're going to apply a function, we need to reference the column. So this is going to be the column that we're wanting to do a function on. So we're saying we want to make a new column called test by taking the HP column of data frames by applying the multi by 2. All right, so we can see here that we have test column, which is literally just double of the Bulbasaur HP. Okay, so I'm going to do this here just to make it a little easier to read. So you can see how we were able to actually reference that function earlier in our code. Now, you might be thinking, that really didn't save us any time. Why didn't we just do HP times 2? We could have. It would have just been easier, probably even faster. But we did it this way just to show you how you can use your functions with an apply function that is built into pandas. So we can go ahead and look at the exact same thing, divide by 2. So this will just be, df test is going to equal HP divided by 2. Right? So now here we see that Bulbasaur's health went from 45 to 22.5. So it literally was cut in half. The next thing we're going to look at is we're going to look at a Lambda function. Now, Lambda is not very fast, but it's supposed to be just kind of an easy one-off kind of anonymous function. We're not going to go too in-depth on Lambda. We're just going to look at some of the things that it can do so that you have an understanding of some of the things that you can do. And then later on in your studies, you'll see where you need to use Lambda versus where you should write a function where you can, or where you can just skip a function altogether and write some code that's already provided. So we're going to go ahead and just start. We're going to do, we're going to get rid of all this, and we're going to do a df dot test, or df brackets ticks test, right? That's how we make a new column. Then we're going to say equals data frame, and then the column we're going to reference, and we're going to say we want to reference the HP column dot apply. So up to this point, everything has been exactly the same. Here's where the Lambda part takes over. We're going to just write Lambda x semicolon x times 2. And you can see it literally just doubled the HP, just like our multi by 2. Now, like I mentioned, Lambda is slower than just writing a function and referencing it. in your apply function. So it's something that you need to take into account when you're trying to write your code. If you've got millions of records, maybe writing a Lambda isn't as good as just writing a function and referencing it in this particular situation. So now that we've seen how the Lambda works, we're going to talk about kind of the structure of a Lambda. So in this particular instance, it's just Lambda x semicolon x. Essentially, this is saying I'm giving you this and I'm taking it back. And it's divided by a semicolon, and it's saying, what did I give? So it gave the HP column, right? So you can think of it like this is df HP. Then it's going to double it. And then that is going to be whatever it is per each row. And that is what test is going to equal. So it gives it something. It does something with it. Then it's applied from the HP column of our data frame to the new column we created called test. One more time. It's going to take X, which in this situation is our data frame HP column, and multiply it by 2 and assign this to the test column. Now there's a bunch of things that you can do with Lambda. It's not, I don't want to make you think that you can't use it. It's just, there are other options out there if you have a lot of computations that you need to do. So the last thing that we're going to look at with the apply function is how to use multi parameters. So you can see here, that we've got some parameters that take 3 parameters, right? So how do you work with these? Well, the easiest way to work with these is a Lambda function. Now I know that we had just said that Lambda is not necessarily the best, but in this situation we're not doing Lambda in the same way as we were before. So we're just going to do our new column df test equals df, so we're referencing the entire data frame at this point, and we're going to say dot apply, and then we're going to say up to now we had started referencing the column with the apply, but now we're just referencing the entire data frame. So we need to tell it what it needs to be focused on. So we need to say Lambda x semicolon, then we put in the name of the parameter, or the function, excuse me. And we're going to say, what is it going to take? Well, it's going to take, and this is just going to be, for an example, df HP, and then it's also going to take df.attack. We're just going to use those 2 random. It doesn't really matter. This is just for an example. I don't really know what it's going to come up with. It's just to show as an example. And we're going to say axis equals 1. In the previous videos, we talked about how when you say axis equals 1, you're talking about the columns. So essentially what this is saying is you're going to want to take the axis of df. Oh, excuse me. So when you're using lambdas, it's x, right? Because you're saying x, the data frame, the x is the data frame. So this is saying the data frame's column, HP, and the data frame's column, attack. Okay? So that's what axis 1 is doing. It's basically saying look at the column instead of just the rows. And here we can do that. And we can see that it took HP and attack and put them together for 139. Okay? Another thing we're going to look at for this particular thing is how you can put in 3. It's the exact same way. You would just come in here, but instead of only having 2, you would have X, whatever one, defense. And now you can see that it's, I guess, multiplying X and Y and Z, and you can think of X, Y, Z. Okay, and there's a bunch of different things that you can do with this. You can, if you don't necessarily need to put in columns, but you just need to put in numbers or words or things like lists even, there are different options that you have available to you if you needed to reference a function earlier in the data code. This is just an example of how you can get your head around the apply function, that you can reference functions, the Lambda function, which allows you to write just a simple one-liner of code to help speed maybe your analytics along, if not necessarily your overall processing. So like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And if you have any questions in the comments, let us know if there's anything else that you'd like to see so that we can keep bringing you quality content that you enjoy. Thank you very much.